Since Spanish explorers dominated Central and South America, the English, French, and Dutch explorers concentrated on North America. They tried to find a sea route to India by going over the top of or through North America. This route, which was not successfully navigated until the early 1900s, is called the Northwest Passage. While searching for this passage, French explorer Jacques Cartier discovered the St. Lawrence Gulf and River. Martin Frobisher from England sailed past Greenland to the far northeastern corner of Canada. English explorer Henry Hudson's exploration took him up and down the eastern coasts of America and Canada. New World products. The main goal of many explorers was to bring back gold and silver from the Americas, called the New World by Europeans, as opposed to the Old World of Europe. They also brought back new things that Europeans had never seen before, such as sweet potatoes, maize, cocoa, pumpkins, squash, vanilla, tomatoes, coconuts, and pineapples. To the New World, Europeans brought wheat, grapes, olives, lemons, oranges, rice, bananas, and sugar crops. They brought animals such as horses, pigs, cattle, and chickens. They also brought European diseases such as smallpox, influenza, and measles, which devastated the native populations who had no natural resistance. During his last voyage in 1611, Henry Hudson's crew mutinied or rebelled against him. They set him, his son, and 7 loyal crew members adrift in an open boat without food or water in the city bay that now bears his name, Hudson's Bay. He was never seen again. Settlement and colonization. After the explorers mapped out the Americas, Europeans set up colonies there. Colonies were territories that had strong ties to their founder countries back in Europe. The Spanish settled in Mexico and Central and South America. The English founded settlements in Virginia and New England. The French settled in Canada. The Dutch settled around New York. And the Portuguese settled in South America. Many, but not all native peoples tolerated the earliest European settlers. Some even helped the Europeans survive starvation and bad weather. As more and more Europeans settled, native peoples were pushed off their lands or died due to European diseases. The Northeast Passage. Between 1553 and 1597, the English explorers Sir Hugh Willoughby and Richard Chancellor and the Dutchman Willem Barents tried to find a route to the Indies by sailing round Scandinavia and northern Russia. This was known as the Northeast Passage. They failed because the Arctic Sea is frozen for much of the year. Chancellor did reach the far north of Russia and from there trekked overland south to Moscow. He set up a European trading company dealing in silks, cotton, and wools from Russia, China, and Japan. The company lasted until 1917. The Europeans came to the Americas in search of gold and conquest and to convert the native peoples to Christianity. They also came to trade, offering manufactured goods such as tools and knife blades in exchange for gold, furs, and other luxury items. The visual arts. The new approach. In the Middle Ages, artists painted people as if they were stiff and flat. Renaissance artists painted their subjects in a more realistic way. They gave their subjects lifelike facial expressions and natural poses and used shadows to create a sense of depth. The painter credited with first developing such techniques was Giotto de Bondone, who lived in Italy at the end of the 1200s. During the 1400s, painters began to experiment with perspective, a method of drawing something on a flat surface so that it appears to have three-dimensional depth, just as the eye would see it in real life. Paints. Renaissance artists experimented with new ways of creating, mixing, and using paint. Medieval painters made paint from water mixed with pigments, which are colors obtained from such objects as ground clay stones, insects, plants, or shells. Renaissance artists applied this watercolor paint to fresh, wet plaster to create works of art called frescoes on walls or ceilings. The wet plaster dried quickly with the paint in it. Artists also used a substance called tempera, which was a pigment mixed with a quick-drying egg yolk, to paint on surfaces such as wood, canvas, or dry plaster. More than 20 years after painting the frescoes on the enormous ceiling of the Sistine Chapel in the Vatican in Rome, Michelangelo returned in 1536 to paint the Last Judgment on the wall behind the altar. Some of his holy figures were naked, which was considered to be immoral and obscene, so later artists such as Daniel da Volterra were commissioned to cover up the figures.